Eldra Patrick. DeBarge is an American singer-songwriter and was the focal point and primary lead singer of family group DeBarge throughout the early to mid-1980s. Popular songs led by Elle include Time Will Reveal, Stay With Me, All This Love, and Rhythm of the Night. As a solo artist, he is best known for his unique high tenor register, strong falsetto and the hits, Who's Johnny, and Love Always, and for his collaborations with Tone Loc, George Clinton, Quincy Jones, Fourplay, and DJ Quik. DeBarge is a 3-time Grammy nominee. Life and career. Early life. A native of Detroit, Michigan, Elle was the sixth of 10 children born to Robert Louis DeBarge, Sr. and Etteline DeBarge. DeBarge was already singing in his local church choir and playing piano as a child. Later, after his family moved to Grand Rapids, he and the rest of his family began performing at their uncle's Pentecostal church. When Elle was 13, his parents divorced after a difficult and stormy marriage. Elle is of African American, English, French, and Native American descent. Growing up, he was closest to eldest brother Bobby and began imitating his brother's vocal styling. For several years, Elle spent time being in private study with music educator Ricky Callier. By 1975, Elle had begun to express a desire to become a performer. Elle became a father for the first time at 16. He would eventually father 11 more children. In 1977, he dropped out of high school and began performing with his elder brothers in clubs and venues in Michigan. By 1979, Band Lictors was able to secure a deal with Source Records MCA to release the Pall Mall Groover Euro Hot Ice album as smash for the USA-Canada market, and moved Elle from Michigan to Los Angeles, to have him, his brothers Mark and Randy DeBarge, in addition to their cousin Andre Abney, Elliot Townsend, and Stanley Hood, to back up the release as the Smash Band. Eldest sister Bunny joined her brothers in California as well. In 1980, because of the success of their brothers Bobby and Tommy DeBarge with the hit group Switch, he was able to perform live at the piano and singing in front of Motown CEO Berry Gordy, who immediately signed the group, then known as the DeBarges, to the label. Motown mentored them, with members later working and contributing songwriting, arrangements, and production to the recordings of Switch, including the 1980 albums This Is My Dream and Reaching for Tomorrow. Elle DeBarge's first professional recording was as background vocalist to Switch's 1979 hit I Call Your Name. He later helped to arrange music for several Switch songs, including Love Over and Over Again, and My Friend in the Sky, which he, Bunny, and Bobby wrote. This song would later be sampled by the likes of Queen Pen and Raheem DeVaughn. Music career. In 1981, The DeBarges was released after the family had worked in the studio for a year recording it. The album was noted for most of its songs produced and written by all 4 family members, including Bobby DeBarge, who helped end the album track Queen of My Heart after Elle had led the song for most of its tenure. The following album, 1982's All This Love, featured younger brother James and saw much success with the compositions I Like It, and the title track. Elle would remain the producer and arranger for all of the group's Motown albums. In 1983, DeBarge released In a Special Way, which spawned the hits Time Will Reveal, and Love Me in a Special Way, and in 1984, the band became a sensation while touring for Luther Vandross on the Singer's Busybody Tour. Though the group enjoyed much success and appeared to be a family unit, there were growing tensions between Elle and his brothers, mainly because of Motown's push to have Elle become the only noted star of the group, repeating a pattern that began with Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. By the end of the tour, Elle DeBarge was mainly called to handle the production of DeBarge's next album, Rhythm of the Night, without much help from his siblings. Rhythm of the Night became the group's best-selling album ever, though some contended that Elle DeBarge was the only member present on the album with the exception of the title track, which became a top 5 hit in several countries including the US and UK, becoming the group's and Elle's signature song. In late 1985, he appeared on The Facts of Life in the Season 7 episode Do I as himself and performed his single You Wear It Well with Lisa Whelchel, Kim Fields, Mindy Cohn, and Nancy McKeon singing backup. In 1986, DeBarge left the group and began his solo career with the release of his self-titled debut album, which spawned the hits, Who's Johnny, and Love Always. 3 years passed, however, until DeBarge released his second album, Gemini, in 1989. The album was a failure. DeBarge's contract with Motown was terminated in 1990, and he signed with Warner Brothers. In the meantime, DeBarge was featured on the Quincy Jones single The Secret Garden, alongside Al B. Shaw, James Ingram, and Barry White, released in 1990. In 1992, DeBarge released his third album, The Morris White-produced In the Storm, which featured the Chanty Moore duet You Know What I Like, which was Moore's first professional recording. Critics noted the album for its Marvin Gaye-style productions, with DeBarge later admitting that Gaye was a huge influence on his musical style. He once commented that he had initially written All This Love as a song he imagined Gaye doing, even imitating Gaye's ad-libs during his I Want You era near the end. That same year, he had chart success on the R&B charts with a collaboration with Fourplay on their version of Gaye's After the Dance. DeBarge's next album, 1994's Heart, Mind and Soul, was co-produced with Babyface, yielding modest charted singles such as Slide, and Where Is My Love. While DeBarge continued to collaborate on other artists' projects including Brother Chico and rapper DJ Quik among others, he didn't release any more albums between 1994 and 2009. In 2010, he finally emerged from a 16-year delay with the appropriately titled Second Chance, released after a series of comeback performances and appearances including a well-received performance at the 2010 BET Awards. The album yielded 2 singles, Second Chance, and the Faith Evans duet Lay With You, and later resulted in 3 Grammy Award nominations, Best Male R&B Vocal Performance, Best R&B Song, and Best R&B Album. He remains the only member of the DeBarges to have Grammy nominations outside of the group and in the family altogether. Personal life: Elle was raised in Detroit and Grand Rapids as a child. Elle's parents had a tumultuous marriage that involved domestic abuse and child abuse on the part of Elle's father Robert. Elle has remained mum on his relationship with his father and many other elements of his family life, later documented in books written by his mother Etteline, sister Bunny and brother Tommy. In 1978, DeBarge became a father to his first child, a daughter named Adris. He eventually went on to father 12 children altogether. Elle was close to his siblings, particularly his brothers Bobby and Chico. Bobby DeBarge's death in 1995 had a profound effect on Elle, family members later saying he has never fully recovered from Bobby's death. Since Bobby's death, he has performed several of Bobby's songs with Switch on stage, sometimes with Chico DeBarge singing along. Elle and several DeBarge brothers reunited in 1998 performing several DeBarge classics. Legal problems and drug addiction. In 2001 he was arrested for cocaine possession and was given probation. In 2006 he was arrested again for possession of a controlled substance and was once again given probation. In 2007 he was arrested in a domestic dispute and was held without bail. The charges were later dropped. Later that year he was arrested yet again and charged with cocaine possession and given probation again. However, he was once again arrested in 2008 for possession of crack and drug paraphernalia, breaking the terms of his probation. For this violation he was immediately sentenced to 2 years in state prison in California. Elle has had a history of drug abuse. He stated that his addiction started after he began receiving prescription medication for toothache pain after having a tooth pulled by a dentist. Up until then, DeBarge had not used drugs, unlike his siblings who began to abuse drugs during the tenure of the group. By the mid-1990s, Elle had become addicted, and his addiction resulted in his career faltering after its peaks in the 1980s. Following a prison sentence in which he served 13 months, Elle announced that he had found sobriety after an addiction that he said had lasted nearly 25 years, stating he had also acknowledged his problems with the law in the past. In 2010, he released Second Chance, his first album in 16 years. The project received critical acclaim, earned a Grammy Award nomination for Best R&B Album. However, in February 2011, while promoting Second Chance, DeBarge's label announced that the singer was cancelling all public dates and appearances as he went back to rehab following a relapse. DeBarge has since returned to work and made an appearance at the 54th Grammy Awards in February 2012. As of June 2015, DeBarge is still touring. Discography = studio albums = compilation albums = singles = featured singles See also, List of #1 dance hits, List of artists who reached #1 on the US dance chart. References. External links, official website, DeBarge official Twitter.